as I begin my exploration of the Whiteward. So, I'm just doing some charm management here. I wanted to test out this one that makes me deal more damage, but also take more damage. And I am thinking it is a little too punishing for my taste, so I'm not going to keep that on. I found an upgrade that lets me use an extra yellow charm even when, regardless of my crest, even when I have both of my charm slots for yellow charms filled up. Sorry, Tool, I can't help it, I just keep calling them charms or trinkets or whatever. But yeah, I'm hoping that I can find some other upgrades like that, because equipping more tools is a very nice idea. It'd always be nice to have more tools equipped. So, we are wandering through the Whiteward. Encounter this strange bug. This long, worm-like thing on legs that charges forward with a pair of scissors. And the Citadel has been a very cool area to explore. I will definitely do a more Citadel-focused video. It has my favorite boss so far in the game, the Cogwork Dancers, which I thought were just a really well-designed, entertaining boss, and not very difficult. Took me like 3 tries, I think, but I've just loved their design, their music, the different phases. They pulled a classic little thing, a little final phase shtick that is always very effective to me. So I won't spoil what that is in case you go and fight them, but I really, really enjoyed them. Also, as you can tell, just doing a little bit of beard scratching. A little beard scratching today. My beard trimmer recently broke, and so I've gotten a little bit shaggy in the beard. I'm keeping it shaped with the razor, but the actual beard hairs are getting a little crazy. But I got a new trimmer at the store yesterday, so we will tame this forest later today. Oath of the Whiteward, while song must be sung, none may falter. Infirmity, sickness, death, all are banished from our citadel. has introduced a lot of the narrative in the game, or a lot of the, a lot of interesting plot sort of elements, fleshing out the setting and so on. And I'm definitely interested in doing a full Silksong lore video when I finish the game. And exploring the Citadel has started giving some ideas of what the game's lore really is. Basically, what we're seeing is an oppressive ruler of some kind, some sort of weaver leadership that is dominating the bugs and forcing them into essentially slavery, under the guise of this kind of religious order. So of course, through the whole game we've seen these pilgrims attempting to ascend to the Citadel to be met with paradise. But what we find when we arrive is that the Citadel only offers slavery. These poor bugs are told to work and work and work, and they are rewarded very meagerly. And what they are rewarded with is quickly taken away as well. I guess, ludo-narrative, the harmony, I suppose, the opposite of ludo-narrative dissonance, right? It has been very strong in the Citadel. So we're in a new area here, the Underworks, and we see one of the chorus creatures, or robots rather, hanging up in the distance there. And the narrative of the bug's relationship with the rulers of the Citadel is done very nicely, or represented very nicely in certain elements of gameplay. So for instance, this bench that I'm sitting on, many benches in the Citadel, unlike all other benches in the game, actually charge you to sit in them. You have to pay rosaries for the bench to pop up, and then you can sit on the bench. Or if you want to get silk, you can spend rosaries to get some silk from a machine. And the price for these things is really not worth it. Well, the benches are probably worth it depending on, your situation and if you need that checkpoint. But at the very least, even if it might be worth it for you to make that trade, it's annoying, right? The game has taught you that these things should be bench, you can just sit on it. But now you enter the Citadel, and suddenly the rulers of the Citadel are demanding that you pay some of your hard-earned rosaries in order to just take a checkpoint, heal, swap out your tools. So what it does, kind of narratively through those gameplay choices, to me, is make you resent the Citadel's rulers and feel that they are taking advantage of you, right? That they are unfairly extracting from your resources, right? You did all this work for these rosaries, and now the Citadel, for no good reason, is demanding that you pay for things that should be free. We rescued a flea here. So, I think it's a great bit of design on Team Cherry's part to make you despise whoever is at the top of the Citadel, and feel like you are being personally victimized, right? You know, the setup for the game is that Hornet's kidnapped by the bugs in the Citadel, and that's annoying for Hornet, right? But we are not Hornet, and as developers and artists, you need to find ways to make your audience feel for your characters, right? In some way empathize with your characters or feel their pain. And there's a lot of ways that you can do that. But one, effective way that Team Cherry did this was by making us, as players, feel aggrieved by the Citadel bugs. And so it kind of aligns us with Hornet, right? So, that's just one thought I had as I was going through the Citadel. And the Citadel is an awesome area. It is massive, massive. I'm not sure if there's anything really beyond it in terms of areas. I think I've been to most of the areas on the map. At this point, it feels very filled out. And I suspect that a lot of the game will just be reusing certain areas. And of course the rest of the Citadel, which I have not fully explored. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's a whole bunch of new areas that will be uncovered in Act 3. I have done a ton of stuff at this point. I have cleared most of the areas on the map. I am currently, the last thing I was working on after recording this was trying to defeat the boss of the Bile water section. Daughter of a distant land, we who remained have waited long, bind our strength to yours, and reclaim the future of our haunted kingdom. So we will be uncovering a new silk power here. It's interesting to wonder about who is behind all of this. obviously the Weavers used to have a kingdom here of some kind because of their ruins all over the place. And silk is a major element of the game. Narratively, you know, it's all of the bugs are like powered by silk, basically. And this new silk power lets us grapple onto these hanging rings, which we've seen plenty of around the map. So it's one of those moments where, you know, very Metroidvania style, we can now return to many of these areas that we have seen before, and now use our new power to unlock additional areas. Now you can hit enemies with this spear, but I do not realize that at this point. Or rather, what I mean by that is if you are platforming around and you shoot the spear at an enemy, it will pull you to them and then launch you in the air. And you can also launch it at walls, and it will pull you to the walls, but I don't really realize that right now. I think that it's only for grabbing onto hooks, grabbing onto the little rings that are hanging down on chains. And there is something kind of a little arbitrary or silly about these rings as like a navigation tool, because you know, you could just hang on to them with your hands, right? And there are certain areas where, like right here, where you can activate mechanisms with the chains by pulling them down. And it is kind of silly, because it's like all those areas that I passed before where I needed I needed to pull the chain down. I could have just grabbed it and done it before, you know. The skill, it's not like double jump, right? Where if you want to get to an area that has, you have to double jump to reach. That completely makes sense that you couldn't reach it before, because if you just can't jump high enough to do it, that's that, right? There's no other option. But with this, with pulling the hooks down, it's like I could have just pulled the hook down before. I didn't need. This silk spear doesn't really do anything to help me actually pull a hook. Anyway, that's not really a major critique or anything. It's just kind of funny. It's like doesn't. I guess it's a little bit of that dissonance, right, between the narrative and the mechanics. So this area in the Underworks is called the Cauldron. The Cauldron. And through this door we find a new NPC working away at a little drafting desk or something. It seems to be a workshop area, judging from the Master, you seem the lone maker left in the Citadel. Are you my enemy? The other constructs of this place object aggressively to my presence. Bugrid, I am a maker, yes. Enemy, no, I am an architect. Only an architect. To build, automate is not a choice. It has our nature directive cage. You are a weave type, yes. A first child. Rare, extinct, or not, it does so seem. You see it, true master. I bear the lineage of weavers, along with other strands equally strange. Then on your request, Bugrid, as directive demands, for Farloom's first children and our kingdom eternal, I shall serve, I shall craft. Cogwork wheel. A sawtooth circlet. I don't have any craft metal. A scuttle brace. Rather, I have one craft metal. But where I am after recording this video, I have not found any craft metal since. And there's like a bunch of stuff on the map right now that I need craft metal to do. And I don't know where it's all hiding. So if y'all have any secret craft metal locations, you know, where there's like a bunch of it all at once. Talking about my gun, I believe so, Master. A relic of their old workshop, lost and fitted. The parts suggest a weapon of thread, one I would attempt to repair myself had I endless time. An architect's work owes much to the art of the first children. They set experts tended for the tools and talents of Farloom Eternal. If you desire demand, I can remake the tool, though my own mind directives may produce a unique result. Silk shot. Silk shot. I'm not sure who else can fix the silk shot. Probably the Forge Daughter. And I don't know the differences in abilities, but I just decided to do this with the 12th Architect. I don't even really use it very much in gameplay. I tried it once or twice and it's fine, but it didn't really appeal to me too much. Usually, the tools that I use now, I have a ranged one, which is usually the long pin item, and then I have the flint gem, I think. Is that what it's called? The one where you can sharpen your needle and make it do more damage. I really like that one. For a while, I was like, I'll use the flea brew that lets me attack faster, and the flint gem that makes my attacks stronger, but I kind of ended up thinking that that was a little unnecessary. It was a little too much investment in making my needle stronger. Guys, I hate when you find these little shell sections that just hurl shell fragments into spikes. Also, am I crazy, or it's been a while since I've played the first Hollow Knight, but the magnet charm in that one that lets you, that pulls pulls Geo towards you. Like, Geo isn't destroyed when it hits the spikes, right? In that game. That's a new thing that they did in Silksong. I think that's right. But either way, I have really come to the conclusion that I don't like the fact that when stuff hits the spikes, it is destroyed because it's just really annoying. You're often fighting over spikes and lava and whatever, or fighting nearby it, and then you kill an enemy and all of their rosaries go flying into the spikes, and you just lose all that money. Makes me very sad. But it is what it is. I got a new charm that gives me more rosaries for defeating enemies, and I've been enjoying that. It also makes you lose rosaries when you get hit, but I find it still generally, you come out on top. I don't have it equipped all the time. I only use it if I'm either looking to farm a few more rosaries to get a specific item, or if I'm just kind of bouncing around the Citadel or someplace, doing a lot of fighting. But it's a nice little boost. Okay, also, I got access to a great rosary farming method when you reunite the courier brothers, and you can start doing deliveries and just making like 150 rosaries each time or whatever it is. I don't know if that's infinite or if they cut you off at some point, but I feel like it kind of solved my rosary issues, because it really doesn't take too long to get a nice chunk of rosaries doing that. The economy situation at this point in the game for me is not terrible. I find that what happens is I usually get a ton of rosaries through turning in items, doing quests, exploring. I end up with a lot of rosaries, and then I find a new merchant and I go broke just buying all of their stuff. And the merchants are getting very expensive with their prices, so you can get a lot of rosaries and then lose them all very quickly. Did I tell you that I'm in Bile water right now trying to beat the boss there? And he's driving me nuts. There's just a handful of things in that fight that are all individually quite annoying. I really don't like the enemies in that area that hide in the water and then spring up momentarily and then dive back in. I've kind of come to a strat with them where I pogo on them, and that works pretty well. I look at where they're going to come up, I jump above them right as they're coming out of the water, and then I pogo on their head until they are defeated. And that works pretty well, but they're still pretty annoying enemies. And then it's also crazy annoying in that area, the parasites that prevent you from healing, or rather waste your first bind. You have to bind once to get rid of the parasites. So you combine all of those things boss fight in Bile water, and it makes for a very unpleasant fight. I'm getting better at it. I'm doing okay, but he's definitely giving me trouble. Yeah, that's okay. Also, these silk things, they are so much more common than mask fragments. I feel like you go for like 5 hours without finding a mask fragment. Probably more, honestly. And then those little silk spools are like, I'm getting one of those things every 3 hours. Yeah, all of the loot just falling into the hazards every time you kill an enemy. It makes me weep. But yeah, the economy, I was having a lot of economy issues in Act 1, but I think in Act 2, it's really turned around. Stuff is still quite expensive, but you also have many more effective ways of obtaining rosaries, so it usually doesn't cause too many issues. Once I clear Bile water, I believe I will have the map kind of finished. At least everything that I can think of at the moment. And then I'm going to be focusing heavily on the Citadel, which, you know, I'm doing right now here, but there's a ton of Citadel stuff. And there's a major quest that you get in the Citadel, like the main quest. As I imagine, you know, if you've played into the Citadel a bit, you know what I'm referring to. You have to explore the Citadel and accomplish 3 objectives. And I've kind of wandered partially in the direction of all 3 of those. But haven't actually reached the icon on the map of them all, so I'm going to be knocking those out next, I think, if I ever beat this Bile water guy. Climbing up. Yeah, the Citadel is really cool. Overall, I am definitely having a great time with this game. I think I fell in love with it a bit more in Act 2 than I did in Act 1. Act 1, I was enjoying my time with it, but was sort of not in love with it. I mean, I was having a great time, to be clear, but I was sort of thinking like, yeah, this is good, but yeah, I don't think it's as good as Hollow Knight. In Act 2, so far, I've been kind of feeling that it is a lot stronger, and I don't know if it is better than Hollow Knight or not. Not that, you know, we need to compare everything like that, but I do think it's very good now, and I'm really enjoying my time with it. The Citadel has been the most fun for me to explore. The other areas in Act 1, the general world in Act 1. Oh, here we have a little guy, and there's a little conveyor belt, like a treadmill, I guess. Except you're powering it with your own feet, so. But I had an idea here that I could go equip that tool that makes you run faster, and then maybe I could do something special with that conveyor belt. So this is just me going back to the bench and swapping out that tool. I also have the parry skill. I've been trying to get better at using it. As you can see here, it's I'm still kind of early in the learning curve. It's a very effective ability, though very powerful. Gives you iframes and pretty generous ones. And then you do damage to, I think, every enemy that's on the screen. You do like big AoE damage at the very least. And watching this platforming here. So yeah, it's a pretty effective ability. My only issue with it, oh, here's some of those benches you have to pay for. My only issue with it is just, as usual, I struggle to remember to use my tools and abilities in games like this, you know, FromSoft games, whatever. I usually fall back on a very core set of moves, right? I just use the weapon that I have and just kind of use it in the most basic ways. So in Silksong and Hollow Knight, you know, in Hollow Knight I didn't use spells very much, despite the fact that they are incredibly strong. I mostly just used the nail, and in Silksong I mostly just use the sewing needle. But I am trying sometimes to remember to use my other equipment and abilities. Alright, so I'm on the little the little belt here, running on like a little hamster, powering up whatever this needle is behind me. You can watch it fill up this little progress bar. And I was very curious. I thought that I had stumbled on some great, you know, secret. There was definitely going to be a charm or something behind this. And when I complete it, it pops out a single rosary. Loam says, "Good, me friend, good. When us works together is more holy, is more work done. Together let us work raw hard till them's above see how worthy us is." Me cannot say much more, friend. So yeah, we got a little special line of dialogue from Loam. So Team Cherry was trolling a bit here, but I decided to run on it again, just to see if, you know, it, I don't know, did something different the second time. So this is obviously, you know, kind of a joke more than anything, but it does also speak to what I was talking about with the fleshing out your feelings about the Citadel, right? You do all that work to power up that wheel and you get one single rosary. But yeah, the game is going well. I'm really enjoying it. I love some of the changes they made in this game. Some of them are a little tough, I guess, as well, but I've gotten kind of used to them. For instance, in Hollow Knight you could heal, modularly, I guess. You could heal one mask at a time and expend a small amount of soul for each one. In this, you have to burn a whole spool of silk to heal, and but it heals more. My favorite combo of tools here is the one that lets you heal 4 masks, but also makes it take longer, and then the one that makes you heal faster. So when you combine the two of them together, you get a very quick heal for 4 masks, which I think is awesome. And one of the other great things that they added, or rather one of the great things they added, was the ability to heal in midair. It is a really phenomenally potent ability that allows you to not just heal, right, but it turns healing into a useful tool. Is the boss, or are the enemies doing an attack that is hard to avoid, but you're in one safe spot? Well, you can bind in that safe spot in midair, and you will hold there safely for the duration of the healing, which might give time for the attack to blow over, right? It also allows you to heal much more safely because, if you have to heal on the ground and the enemies are charging back and forth on the ground, that's a very dangerous place to be. But if you can jump up into the corner of a room, up against the ceiling, that is a very safe place to be. And so you can give yourself a better chance at healing without getting interrupted. One brutal aspect of the healing, however, it's just very punishing to make a mistake with the healing, because if you get knocked out of your healing animation before you heal the masks, you lose all the silk and do not get any healing, which is absolutely brutal. In a fight, it's often, it doesn't have to be a death sentence, but it often can be, because not only do you lose your silk and you don't heal your masks, but you also got knocked out of the healing, which means that you lost masks from getting hit. So it is a very unforgiving and brutal aspect of the healing. It is very important in this game for you to make sure that you are not going to get hit when you heal. So, just kind of wandering around this area. It's a bit of a maze down here. And I'm just trying to figure out how to progress. One of the most charming things in this game, as a side note, is the singing of the NPCs. I adore how, whenever you play your needle in, will start singing along. And they range in quality in a hilarious way. And they just have a lot of character and personality. One of my favorite singing NPCs that I've met is Grendel, the little snitch bug. When you find his hideout, where he's hanging out with his buddies, and you play your needle in there, Grendel and all of his friends all start singing, and it is just this cacophony of horrible voices, and it entertains me so deeply, and I just love it. One fun thing about the Citadel is they throw in these silk stealing robot things. I think they're kind of random. I'm not sure if they can, I don't think they can pop up everywhere in the Citadel, but there's certain areas where they will pop up from time to time and add to the fight in a way that is fun. You know, in these games, the enemies in every area are identical every time you go in, and so having a bit of a randomness with that enemy is a fun touch. I think that's an idea that could be developed. You know, in a game like this, having a roaming enemy, for instance, some hunter that's chasing you down or something, and any cell that you walk into has, you know, a 2% chance of having that enemy added into the area or whatever. So we are back in the Whiteward, and it has some cool lore. Kind of disturbing. They're like shoving silk into the bugs, and it's seen as a sin to die, because of course you have to labor for the masters of the Citadel. So I forget where the lore is, but there's something I found that talks about, like, you know, this bug died on the operating table, basically. He refused to come back to life. You know, he has sinned against us for ceasing his work, and he will be, you know, burned and thrown out without any burial honors because of that sin, which is cool. So I'm just trying to finish off exploring the Whiteward. The note about Silksong having a lot of double damage is, like, absolutely true. It only has become more and more true the more that I've played. I don't think the game has felt unfair yet. There are certain moments where I go, like, sheesh, that was kind of a brutal choice for them to make. But also I was running from that guy and didn't realize that his charge would just continue. Also, for some reason, I'm just not resting at the bench in Whiteward, and so I have to do this run again every time. Yeah, I think I mentioned earlier given you fewer masks to start the game with, and then they wouldn't have had to make all these enemies do 2 damage, because it honestly doesn't, maybe this doesn't matter, but it doesn't feel special at all anymore. Like, finding an enemy that deals 2 damage to you, it doesn't make them seem extra intimidating or scary or whatever. It just watching my goofy gameplay here. I'm a real master of this game. Yeah. I don't know. It's just kinda, how do I put it? It's not really a problem, I guess. It's fine, but it's silly to have this double damage aspect, in my opinion, and then just have it be like everywhere. It's not really a balancing thing for me, because as I said, the game isn't proving, like, it's not stopping me from progressing. I'm making good time in the game. I haven't gotten stuck on bosses for more than, I don't know, probably half an hour to 40 minutes at the longest. That one above Bile is still probably the one that took me the longest to beat. And so yeah, it's not about the difficulty. It's more just the idea that I feel like 2 damage enemies can be reserved for moments of, oh shit, this enemy does 2 damage, I have to be really careful. So it removes that impact when you're doing 2 damage everywhere. There are also some moments where the bosses, there are certain moments of repositioning that the bosses do. It's like, it's not when an actual, their moves are always telegraphed well enough and easy to anticipate, but sometimes there will be a boss that rapidly and unpredictably moves in order to set themselves up to then give the telegraph, if that makes sense. And I've gotten, there are certain moments where I feel like, okay, this game, it's kind of whack for a boss to rapidly reposition into you. You get hit with the contact damage, which does 2 masks. You get knocked out in front of them and are frozen while they are setting up their attack, and they blast something at you that hits you again for another 2. There can be some cascades of difficulty, right? Or disaster, I suppose. It doesn't mean that you can't avoid these things once you get to really know the boss, but I think part of good boss design is being intuitive, right? You should be able to interpret what the boss is doing just by looking at it. The first time you play, I'm sure that we've all played bosses in FromSoft games, or any boss games really. And you go into a boss for the first time, and you have like a crazy good run against the boss. And I think a large part of that is because the boss is intuitively designed, right? When you see the boss winding up their arm for a big swing, you can intuit that they are about to swing it horizontally at you, right? Or if they launch up in the air and then hover there for a second and there's a beat and then they start plummeting, you know that they're probably going to butt slam you, right? What would not be intuitive design is if the boss jumps up in the air, starts hurtling down towards you, and then immediately there are two summoned swords shooting in at you from either side, right? And like, the boss doesn't actually land on the ground. They freeze 5 feet above you, and then these two spears come in from either side and cut you to bits, right? Now, intuitive design is not a long-term problem, because as you play the boss, you will learn its moves, and then it doesn't need to be intuitive because you are just learning that when the boss jumps, they're going to, you're going to have to watch out for the side-swiping spears. But I do think, so this boss is the Unraveled. I do think that intuitive design is, I don't know, who can say with objective or whatever, but I think that is a kind of an objectively good standard for a boss to have, right? You don't want to fight a boss and just be deeply confused the first time by what it's doing. You don't want to be unable to parse what its movements mean, right? If it readies a big bow and arrow and takes aim at you, and then suddenly from the ground, there's an eruption of earth and he's actually casting a spell, I think that's kind of bad. Also, I didn't realize this at the time when I was fighting this boss, or even after I beat this boss, but the design, this boss, this big one, this big guy, I recognized him later on. I'm sure you do as well if you've been deeper into the Citadel. But I beat this boss and only later on went to that area, and I was like, wait a minute, that's the guy that I killed down in the surgeon area. Do you love how this entire time that I have been dying and going back to the Whiteward over and over and over again, I still have not just sat in that damn bench? Sorry, it just occurred to me, you sit in a chair. Go sit in my chair. But you don't sit in a bench. You can also sit on a chair. And you sit on a bench, that's fine. But you can sit in a chair. But you never sit in a bench. Fascinating, fascinating stuff. I think this boss is cool. I like the aesthetic of this area, the sort of surgical horror of the Whiteward. I find pretty cool and compelling and interesting. And sorry, just hearing something in my apartment and wondering what it was and if it meant I needed to stop recording. I think we're good, though. I think we're good. I think this horror stuff could have gone a little bit further. for some, really monstrous, horrifying stuff, but never really got there. Also, I think this boss would have been a lot easier with double jump. I kept on having to wall jump, sprint over to the wall, jump off and around, and then try to hit him in the back. Had to learn the corpses as well. They seemed kind of chaotic at first, but I came to eventually realize that he just shoots them. He shoots a lower one and a higher one. So, as long as you know that, I think he can change the order. But as long as you know the arcs that they're taking, it's a lot easier to dodge them. This fight was pretty good too. I did enjoy this one. I'm not sure how far I get here if I make it to phase 2, but phase 2 is pretty intense as well. Really just cranks up the intensity. I like boss phase structures where the second phase doesn't, radically change the boss, but it basically builds on the lessons of the first phase, but just makes it more intense, right? It adds more for you to juggle in your head. It's faster, or it's a little bit more chaotic, or there's whatever, but you're still fundamentally doing what you were doing in the first phase. It's just now ratcheting up the difficulty and seeing if you can handle the intensity. So we have another minion phase here. I have a couple of these little bugs that spin around. And there we go. I really love the Reaper moveset. What crest do you guys use? Yeah, I just don't think I'll be changing to anything else. I really have enjoyed the Reaper. I've really enjoyed, getting extra silk after you bind. And, oh boy, it's bad. Yep, there we go. That's a death. That is a death for us. So, I think that will be the end of our exploration of the Citadel today. Thank you for joining me, and I will see you again when we return to Silksong. Until then, my friends, please take care of yourselves, and I will do the same.